how the 1992 Republican Constitution. Use the pen and the mic to practice journalism in ways that we can only imagine. Their stories have been put together for us who are too young to have witnessed their work to know. And for those of us who are old enough to have seen, to be reminded that Ghana came this far because of the work of some individuals who practiced their profession and sold the idea that power can go along with freedom. Because for many years, we're used to the concept of power not respond or not in any form responding to the concept of freedom. We can have elected governments and we can have the fourth estate keeping them in check, and we can have the courts waiting for arbitration in times there is disagreement. And this is the beginning and the definition of the democracy that we are nurturing. And the role of journalism is being celebrated today in the series that we are going to launch. And any Ghanaian who misses it on GTV or the GBC's network would have missed a great opportunity to either remind himself or to learn about Ghanaian journalism. This is not just about students of journalism or journalists. This is about every Ghanaian who is civic-minded and knows that we are putting together a country that will stand out as an example of developing democracy on the African continent, and that we are part of it. Our legends, more about that later. My role is simply to welcome you and to accept to chair this ceremony as we have lined up the right people to speak on this event. And my job is simply to act as chair. And on behalf of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, I'm very excited about today and the collaboration between the Center for Contemporary Culture and Communication and Culture and the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. We are very excited about this collaboration, and we'll do our best to make sure that it becomes a very successful work. And after this, the next cycle of 13 rounds again will come, and then we'll get to know more about Ghanaian journalism. And on that occasion, I thank you all for coming here, and let's get ready for the show. Thank you.
Let's put our hands together for our chair for this occasion. I think a couple of weeks ago, my usual routine at GBC, you get to work, you get through the newspapers, you get to know what's happening aside your production for the day. So I picked the daily graphic and I was just flipping through it, and I saw an interesting title to an article, Board Decision That Paralyzed GBC. I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. So I started reading, and I was just going through it. I was reading, going through it, and I realized that this is someone who, number one, understands the role of GBC, number two, understands what public service broadcasting is all about, and also understands exactly the happenings within the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, certain decisions that have been taken in the past. The story is just all about GBC and our TV license story, and certain decisions that was taken in the past that, according to the writer of this particular article, paralyzed the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, which I thought was very interesting to read. It's the same writer who is behind this program we'll be launching shortly, and he's a very interesting man, gentleman for that matter too. So ladies and gentlemen, to give us the real concept, to give us understanding what this program is all about, let's put our hands together to welcome Mr. Emil Ashon, who is Executive Director of the Center for Communication and Culture, to tell us really the idea behind this particular program. Let's put our hands together to welcome him.
Thank you, George, and thank you, everybody, for coming. Your Majesty, Nana Kwabnankatiah the Fifth, on Manhin of Iskado, Professor Amin Al-Hassan, Director General of Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, Dr. Fermoni, President of the Ghana Journalists Association, colleague journalists, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Board of Reference and Management of the Center for Communication and Culture, I welcome you all to this historic occasion. If you are a member of this noble fourth estate of Ghana democracy, today must give you cause to be proud. If, as a member of the fourth estate, you are bold in your determination to pull down the foundations of injustice, corruption, impunity, and misrule, and if your penmanship is a joy to read and hear, you must be feeling fulfilled and hopeful today. Fulfilled because today is confirmation that the Ghanaian society is appreciative of the nobility of your cause. Hopeful because if 13 of the journalism profession's path cutters are being recognized and celebrated as legends, you have no doubt that soon it will come to your turn. Permit me, ladies and gentlemen, to introduce the Center for Communication and Culture. We call it CCC. It's an NGO that exists to promote media and cultural development through advocacy and training with the objective to influence quality of output. Our programs are guided by a board of reference made up of persons with specialized knowledge in the areas of our mandate. So we have our very special guest of honor, Nana Kwabnankatiah, who is a historian, a traditionalist, Pan-Africanist, and Pan-Africanist. Of course, you know him as on my hand of Iskado. I'm sure some of you didn't know he was a lecturer at the Cape Coast University. He's a Pan-Africanist at heart. Anything that is not African, he will not support. We have Professor Isis Alalandadi, Professor of African Literature at the University of Ghana. Mr. Kowansa, Ghana's foremost filmmaker of international repute and CEO, Chairman of TV Africa. Sadly, we lost one of our board members, Francis Niyate, the dance colossus, whom we are yet to replace. Why are we here today? We are here because one of our mandates enjoins us to celebrate excellence. We are here to launch a program to celebrate 13 outstanding media practitioners and friends of the media who stood out, not necessarily because they have been holding the pen since the 1950s, but because they have demonstrated the maxim that the pen is mightier than the sword. In the past, especially under military dictatorship and the era of intolerant civilian governments, crusading journalism in Ghana meant a stand against authoritarianism, arbitrariness, and high-handedness. These were the eras associated with the dismissal of editors and CEOs of state organizations, state media organizations, interference in editorial work, detention without trial, and jail terms for criminal libel. Ghana still has crusading journalists, but the crusade now, and we think, should be against corruption, graft, arbitrariness, impunity, and physical assault on journalists. While criticism of the media in the Fourth Republic, have been mostly against low-quality output and unprofessionalism by some untrained and irresponsible journalists, the Center for Communication and Culture is of the opinion that while formal training in journalism must be a prerogative, the type of capacity building today's journalists need for their post-qualification professional improvement is one that emboldens them to fearlessly confront impunity and expose wrongs and corruption, which is arguably the biggest contributor to the emptying of national coffers. We the beautiful and the mavericks, Through their work, they have exposed the ugly. And so therefore, we have the bold, the beautiful, the ugly, and the mavericks. I will operationalize our definitions. The bold are the journalists who use their pen or microphone to crusade against abuse of office by the powers that be it government, business, or politics. The beautiful are those legends who gifted Ghanaian and the world with admirable penmanship, an arresting style, and an excellent wordsmithing. The mavericks, as the name implies, are those individuals in the society who, though strictly speaking not trained or practicing journalists, use their independent-mindedness to confront injustice and succeed in effecting changes in laws, to power, and to social structures. Legends of this first thing we are doing are chosen on the basis of their fearless pursuit of crusading journalism. Relentlessly, they questioned policy, exposed wrongs, and fought the high and mighty in society. Theirs was fair, objective, and balanced journalism pursued with integrity and principle. So we don't have a question in their time, and I knew each of them. They won't criticize just because they want you to come and give them an envelope. Theirs was principled attacks on special guest of honor, Professor Chair. Either because of the personalities involved or the nobility of this cause, not a single individual organization has said no to the proposal. Among them, the Ghana Journalists Association, whose president, Dr. Fermoni, and whose former general secretary, Mr. Bright Blue, picked up the vision and immediately began to run with it. The GBC, through its Director General, Professor Amin Al-Hassan, and I thought you would give him a clap at this time. The Private Newspaper Publishers Association, PRIMPAC, championed by the man everybody knows at Kenteman. The Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association, personified by Cecil Sunkwamels, and represented on the planning committee by a lady called Gloria. Is she here? What? Okay. The Sports Writers Association, led by the one and only Oluwa, our own irrepressible Kwabena Yabua, and the Institute of Public Relations, Ghana, with the media and marketing guru, Mr. Mauku Afajinu, as president. These are partners of the project. Talking about crusading journalists, this country has had some. But for this event, this first event, we have selected the following. And if this thing is ready. Mr. Kofi Bedu. Oh, okay, now it's on Cameron Doodle. So I can talk about Cameron Doodle. Yes, I don't know how. All right. So I will start from where I have. Cameron Doodle. He has been described as one of Ghana's best exports and as the most sought-after Ghanaian journalist across the globe. Doodle in 2018 was listed by Africa Voice newspaper as among 61 influential Ghanaians in the diaspora. He was a radio journalist for the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation from 1956 to 1960, editor of the Ghana edition of South African magazine Drum from 1960 to 1965, editor of the Graphic 1970, correspondent for various publications in the decades since the 1960s, including The Observer, Financial Times, Sunday Times, United Press International, Reuters, the Volkskrant, which is in Amsterdam, The Economist, The Independent, and The Guardian. He's written for all of them and more. Now I jump to Mr. Kofi Bedu. He's an amazing sports writer who, in his time, took his typewriter to the stadium and composed the story as the match was going on. So anytime he finished one page, the driver will take it to the graphic, and he will come and take the next page. So by the time the match ended, the newspaper was ready. Because football is the one that keeps the paper on a Sunday night. So the earlier it goes to bed, the better. And that was his strategy. Kofi Bedu, as a private newspaper in the Second Republic, He took government policies apart and opposed. He is a managing director. Remember on the day Busia was was dethroned, his newspaper, the front page of his newspaper said, "Go, Busia, go." And that was the day Busia was overthrown. He is a managing director who changed the future and transformed the fortunes of Daily Graphic with two newspapers to the present graphic group of 5 newspapers. Elizabeth Ohene, within Ghana, Elizabeth Ohene was literary editor of the Daily Graphic and a major columnist of note. Described as courageous, she defied government of the Third Republic, which sought to promote her to the position of substantive editor. She insisted she would not take the position and that only the Constitution could appoint her. And she refused the position. She went back to her position as literary editor. In the June 4, 1979 uprising and under military dictatorship, she and other female journalists defied the entire society when everybody was begging for the blood of overthrown military rulers. She was one of only 2 voices that insisted that the blood must not flow. I'm sure a lot of you remember that. The blood must flow. Elizabeth Ohene and one other journalist said the blood must not flow. She has been a board member for the International Commission for Investigative Journalists, which coordinates major investigations of stories around the world. Since 1997, she has served as a member of the panel for the CNN Africa Journalist of the Year competition. Adjoa Ewuafere, one-time deputy editor of The Mirror, she is best remembered for her award-winning Thoughts of a Native Daughter column in the then Sunday Mirror, now Mirror. She was also a correspondent of the West Africa magazine and BBC's country correspondent in Ghana. She is the other female I'm talking about who's as a voice of dissent against Let the Blood Flow in the military regime of AFRC. Adjoa is the only Ghanaian to win the GJA Prize for Valor. Kwesi Pratt. Kwesi Pratt is the person you may call anti-establishment. In print, on radio and television, he has been known since the 1990s to fight tendencies of impunity and dictatorship, irrespective of which political party is in power or political regime exists. Cabral Bleyami here. Cabral's crusade began as a columnist of the Weekly Spectator. From there, through his association and/or editorship of the Free Press and the independent newspapers, he was frontal in his attacks against the bastion of dictatorship and culture of silence. He contributed to media education as director of the Institute of Journalism and to the welfare of media personnel as president of the Ghana Journalists Association and the West Africa Journalists Union. Kweku Sechado. Kweku Sechado is an award-winning broadcaster, strategic communications specialist, and one-time editor of the Ghanaian Chronicle in the days when it was called the Spear of the Nation. At that time, the most feared newspaper. A BBC correspondent and host of the critically acclaimed Front Page weekly program on radio, and Kweku One-on-One on television. With top-of-the-shelf skills honed over 30 years in the blue chip local and international media, covering print, wire, service, radio, and television, his communication pedigree is unquestionably world-class. Abdul Malik Kweku Bako. Kweku Bako's fight as editor of the Crusading Guide peaked in the regime of the military dictatorship of Flight Lieutenant Rawlings and the PNDC. In print, on radio, and television, he has pursued beneficiaries of dictatorship and graft. And as Ghanaians will bear him out, he does so with documents. Nana Kofi Kumsin, otherwise known by his alias. You know, his paper had an alias, that is the Spear of the Nation. Kofi Kumsin feared no one, and his pen was no respecter of personalities, high or low. The decade of the 1990s belonged to him. He not only contributed to the change in the language of reportage, but also gave a new angle to investigative journalism. In media education, we recognize Professor Kwame Karakari. The least known about him, everybody knows him, but the least known about this man is that he's a master craftsman himself in journalism. He taught me, and I know the type of stories he produced in class. Not only does he write well, he also teaches the art of writing. He is an embodiment of the quest for media excellence, and in media education, he is spoken of in legendary tones. But everybody knows Kwame Kakari as a fighter against the oppressive rulers of dictators, and against those who profit from oppression. He surprised nobody when the Media Foundation for West Africa, his idea, became flesh. His service to journalism has been on all fronts, sitting on the policy seat as board chair for the Graphic Corporation, as board member and one-time acting director general of GBC. Upon discovering that one of the weapons of dictators, corrupt officials, and dirty corporate practice was the ability to keep a lid on information, he and his colleagues, like Sheshe Akotampao and others, fought the battle of their lives, never retreating, never reneging till the battle was won with the passage of the Right to Information Law. By the time of its passage, it had been written for over 12 years. Honorable Kwabena Jima Osebunsu, ladies and gentlemen, permit me to mention Honorable Osebunsu, whom we honor as the Minister of Information, who made a difference in his time. Until today, his is the difference. In the history of Ghanaian mass media, he is the only Minister of Information who resigned his position in government in protest against the sacking of editors in the military government of the NLC. That is Ankara and Afrifa's time. They sacked the editors of Ghanaian Times and Graphic because they supported quote-unquote opposition in their editorials. And this man resigned his position as Minister of Information. In the category of the mavericks is a lawyer and passionate advocate of freedoms, whose independence of mind, boldness, and yearning for not only the establishment but entrenchment of democracy through speech are well documented. He is Mr. Akotampao. Fearless and independent-minded, Akotampao's advocacy using the practice of law has led to the pulling down of barriers limiting free speech. He, along with others, was at the forefront of the struggle for the passage of Right to Information Law in 2020. Long before this, he was involved in the fight against military rule by the PNDC. In radio, we recognize the contribution of a man who may not have overthrown a government, but with a microphone, but who, when he spoke against impunity, attracted action from a president against misbehaving ministers. He is Godwin Abenobo, Big Body for short. It is not for nothing that Godwin Abenobo is still known as the Grandmaster, decades after he said goodbye to radio. He had been like that from the 80s for three reasons. One, he was an authoritative voice behind the consoles at GBC. Two, his mastery of the craft and his boldness was exemplary. It is not known how many other DJs spoke as boldly and as fearlessly as Godwin did, and especially in the particular period when speaking one's mind was a crime in the culture of silence. Mr. Chairman, ladies and gentlemen, how shall we celebrate the bold, beautiful, ugly, and the mavericks? From July through September this year, there will be interviews on television at peak time on GTV for 13 weeks with the legends. Time and airspace permitting, there may be episodes in which persons who have had significant sacrifice, who have made significant sacrifices or contributions to media development in the establishment of institutions, governance, that is the former ministers of information, former and current chairman of the Media Commission, etc., academia will also come on board during the 13 weeks, time and space permitting. So therefore, we shall have Mr. Safiyidade Cabral himself and Ransford Tete, past presidents of GJA, Mr. Dr. Fermoni, come and not argue, but state their case about how in their time as presidents of GJA, they fought against dictatorship. We shall also have chairman of the Media Commission do the same. In September 2022, that is on 21st December, but 21st September, Kwame Nkrumah's birthday, there will be a public ceremony at one of Ghana's upmarket hotels at which the legends will be honored with plaques, citations, and an unnamed surprise. We will invite the current and former presidents of Ghana, MPs, ministers of state, diplomats, members of the Media Commission, GGA officers, etc., to this function. In September through October this year, by courtesy of GTV and no fewer than 4 prominent partner stations, a 30-minute composite TV documentary on the lives and times of our legends will be telecast. In October, a 200-page book on the lives and times of the legends, as well as their views on contemporary events and issues in journalism, will be launched. The book will be placed in libraries of the media houses and major institutes and departments of communication studies. Countrymen, ladies and gentlemen, join the Center for Communication and Culture, join the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, join the Private Newspaper Publishers Association, join the Sports Writers Association, join IPR to say, are you the legends of Ghanaian journalism? By this act, we seek to embolden current and future Ghanaian journalists to fearlessly confront impunity, expose wrong and corruption. May Ghana win. Thank you very much.
Let's keep putting our hands together for Honorable Sean. And let's put our hands together for the legends that will be honored when this whole program starts on Ghana television. Okay, with the names and we had their pictures too on the screen, there one thing, a couple of things also cut across. You realize that these are journalists who are fearless, professionals for that matter, and principled. I principled in capital letters here. So it's a good thing, and it's a good program being rolled out. And let's put our hands together for the initiator. Let's put our hands together once again for the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation that will be airing this program. Let's put our hands together for GBC. And then the partners too. So as of now, I'm going to call upon each of these partners who've agreed to partner with this whole program. In no order, actually. I'm starting with the Sports Writers Association of Ghana, that's SWAG, to give us this brief statement. Let's put our hands together to welcome the General Secretary.
Thank you. My name is Charles Osesibe, the General Secretary for the Sports Writers Association of Ghana. All protocol observed. Nana was my life patron when I worked with 11 Wise Football Club. Today I can't find 11 Wise, but it still belongs to Nana. Those of us at SWAG, today we have grown in numbers. Formerly SWAG was just Accra base, and we've had all the quality journalists we can talk of. From Ebokwansa was our president. He was very vibrant and fearless. Ohineba Charles, from the first president who was a commentator himself. He was recently honored in Qatar. That is 95-year-old broadcaster. Over to you, Joe Latte. Now, these are people who have served Ghana, and I am happy that the initiator didn't take out the sports media. I am waiting to see the day where the newspapers or broadcasters will frequently start their news broadcasting or write-ups with sports. All along, sports is always at the back. So even the orientation of the Ghanaian, sports grow. But my seniors will agree that sports journalists in this country also fought during the times, Elizabeth Ohene and the rest were fighting. So SWAG is happy to partner this initiative. SWAG is happy to endorse this initiative. For us, or for me, what I see is that the current generation of journalists do not even know that we had such quality journalists fighting for this country. So GBC, Ayiko, two things this will do. Journalists of today will listen and learn from our predecessors, the trailblazers and the pace setters. The other thing, if you don't promote yourself, If you don't sell yourself, nobody will. And it's important for us to know the work we have done as journalists. Again, I'll appreciate the initiator and all partners for putting this event together. SWAG endorses it, and SWAG will continue to work on this project. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Next is the Ghana Journalists Association. Let's put our hands together to welcome Oswald. We're not clapping at all. If we don't, just as he said, if we don't promote ourselves and celebrate, who will do that? Thank you.
Thank you, King George, for whipping up the enthusiasm to clap.
It's a send-off clap.
Reserve for tomorrow. DG of GBC, chair for this program. Royal Majesty Nana Kobran Ketia, the most friendly in the Republic of Ghana. Inimlashon, veteran journalists, and the brain behind this program. Dr. Lawrence Tete, my junior brother, and the most friendly pastor, media pastor in Ghana. Today, 29th of June, will occupy a special place in history as the day we are launching a program which promises to bring about an iconic turning point in programming culture in Ghana. Programming is so conspicuous by its absence in almost all media houses, and the reasons are not far-fetched. Indeed, it is not enough to bemoan the lack of quality program on our networks. What we need to do is to square this situation with the reality, with the logic of reality. And the reality is that many media houses are so financially disabled to put together their local programs and show them. It is also jobpingly expensive to do homegrown programs. So the easy way out is to go in for programs, soap operas, and show them, and thereby pollute the minds of consumers. This program has come at the right time to make a world of difference and to enable the present crop of journalists to drink from the fountain of experience of the veteran journalists we are going to showcase in this program. There are two common threads which run through all of them. Their fearless streak and distinctive qualities. And I believe by showing them, we'll bring about a qualitative improvement in the media landscape in Ghana. On behalf of the outgoing GJA and the incoming one, we pledge our fullest support to this program. And we believe it will be replicated on other networks, whilst we look at ways to promote more of our veteran journalists so that the present crop of journalists will replicate what they did and what they stood for. The present environment cannot compare to what we inherited, the hellish, those early days when the media were kept on a very tight leash, when the media were shackled by all kinds of obnoxious laws, when the entire nation was enveloped in the culture of silence. But it boggles the mind that even in this liberal environment, some journalists allow themselves to be constricted by fear, and this affects their output. Please note that journalism is not for timid, timorous souls. Journalism is not for lily-livered people. It's for those who are brave to tell truth to power and hold people in positions of power and accountability to account. Once again, this program has a blessing. God bless us all.
Ms. Ram, thank you very much. Next is the Institute of Public Relations. We have a rep here. Yes, let's put our hands together to welcome him. Yes.
Good afternoon, all gathered here today. I stand here to represent the Institute of Public Relations, Ghana. We do apologize that we are not missing the strength that we wanted to represent the Institute at. Nevertheless, we have this program has our full support, especially in our peculiar role to make sure we manage relationships within society. This is something which I think has come to really cement the importance of journalism and media and communication in this country. And it's going to be, I believe it's going to be a shining light to other journalists who will be coming after these great persons who are going to be celebrated through this program. So in that light, I believe the IPR will give it its full support within corporate Ghana to make sure that it gets all the support it needs to grow and thrive from the beginning to the end. Thank you.
Thank you very much, IPR Ghana. Next is the Private Newspapers Publishers Association. Do we have? Yes, let's put our hands together.
Mr. Chairman, all protocols observed. PRIMPAC stands for Private Newspaper and Online Publishers Association of Ghana. We have our president as Mr. Andrew Edwin Atta, and Kinteman is our executive secretary. They are unavoidably absent, and they sent their greetings and compliments. With the addition of the online media to PRIMPAG, we have relatively young membership, and we really need to have some mentorship, something to look up to. And it is in that vein that we see this program as a laudable one, because it will motivate us to have something to look up to. We as PRIMPAG endorse and support this program. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. And then the Ghana Independent Broadcasters Association. Giba. Okay, so the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation then. The final partner. Let's put our hands together. That's one of my bosses there, with Zampabe. Oh, put your hands together for him.
Thank you very much, my brother. I stand on existing protocols, Mr. Chairman, and make this short address. The Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, as many would know, is the public service broadcaster of repute. And for a large part of the country, they do not see us as independent. But I want to read what our mandate suggests and link it to why we are married to such a program. And incidentally, the act that established us was by the NLC. It was not by a civilian regime. Yes, the GBC Act, 1968, NLCD 226. And it reads, it shall be the duty of the corporation to provide as a public service an independent and impartial broadcasting services for general reception in Ghana. The people, our senior brother Emil introduced as those who are going to be on this show, clearly would tell you are people who are independent minded. People we love to showcase as those the generation needs to pick a lesson or two from. And on that independent platform that we stand, we showcase all of these. And we will tell you the time of the program through the promos that will come up, but definitely it will be on a Sunday. And for these people, what I myself have learned from them is the fact that they were very assertive, they were independent minded, yet they were not insulting. And that's the problem we have now. Because if you insulted me, you took away my defenses and created more problems. But if the critique, and I like the bold in there, was just bold and fearless, it's okay, I should be able to take it. And if I'm in a position of authority and I'm unable to take it, I have a problem. So GBC is happy to offer this platform, and we will do our very best to ensure that it gets to the nooks and crannies of this country. We have 18 radio stations across the country, and we do 25 languages. We want to increase the number of languages. It's a platform that is amazing. We have 7 TV channels. The promos will run on all of them. We want to get as many Ghanaians as possible to emulate the examples that these wonderful people who have come ahead of us in journalism have set. And so we are proud to provide our platform for such wonderful delivery to the people of Ghana, and particularly to up-and-coming journalists. Thank you very much, Mr. Emil Ashon, Senior Emil Ashon, for this concept. And we pray that our collaboration will be strengthened so that we can give more to the people of Ghana. God bless you all. God bless us all. Thank you.
Remember somewhere in 2012, the Daily Graphic published a story. It was a feature you wrote. That's November 2012. You've forgotten. Yeah. It was titled Nana Koblanketia IV, the only paramount chief who became a prison graduate. You remember now? Not him though. That was way back in 2012. It was published in the Daily Graphic. It was actually the Saturday edition of the Daily Graphic. It's a beautiful feature, and if you want a copy, just come to GBC or you can go to Graphic, you get a copy there. So on this note, That was his father, his uncle actually, yes. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for us to listen to our special guest of honor, the uncle whose Emela Sean wrote the story about. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together to welcome His Majesty Nana Kobna Nketia V, who is the Omahini of Esikaro traditional area. He's a historian. He's the board chair of the Center for Communication and Culture and former board chair of the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. Let's put our hands together to welcome him. This 1, 2, 5 people are clapping. Thank you.
The chair, Professor Al-Hassan. I'm not football, so please do forgive me. But my mind always goes to Malcolm X. You know, there's a speech I like listening to, The Ballot or the Bullet by Malcolm. And he starts off, he says, sisters and brothers as a turn, it ends up with saying, and my enemies. And everybody laughs like you do. And he says, if you think that you have a room like this and there's no enemy here, then you must be joking. And I found an enemy in the swag guy. He's abandoned me when he was talking about 11 wives and where they are. But I wanted to tell you, in fact, Sekini Azakas has joined them down there. I wanted to tell him that there's something fundamentally wrong with the organization of football. If a city, the third city, does not have a team up there to bring the best out, there's something wrong. There's something wrong. But there's not the room for it. The chairman spoke very beautifully. And when he sat next to me, I said, you finished the speech. I mean, in 2-3 minutes, he said what I was going to say in about 3 hours. So, and then listening to Ebenezer Pabit speaking, I knew him. He was a very nice, handsome young man. When I saw him today, I was wondering what happened to his head. We'll talk about it later on. I hope it's not the economy. You know? And then, but our minister, the Reverend Minister, did inspire us with a song that we used to dance to. When he was singing, we are going. I remember when I used to be a very young man. Those days, they will come again. Oh, they pay you're going and you have somebody's daughter in your arms. But now we are old. We are old. On the more serious side, my only aspiration in life has to be humble, nothing more. So the uses of words, adjectives like majesty and so on, I cringe in that chair. I'm just a very humble Nana, you know. I was very surprised when those who invited me here, and I chaired this center. So I was very surprised, Center for Communication and Culture, when they invited me and said that, oh, they had dubbed me with special guests. And I asked, what does it mean? I also found out that they had added honor to it. Sofu. I need to be educated. Oh. I'm so confused. Somebody, I may be Kafui day after this, will come and tell me when they say special guest of honor. So, but in this perplexity, ladies and gentlemen, if I say anything improper or do not speak well, in the manner of those who the state has labeled honorable ones, then please forgive me in advance. Blame the Center for Communication and Culture. Under the magnificent, and I've heard people talk about it, banner of media in Ghana, the bold, the beautiful, ugly, and the maverick. We all saw the 13 journalists whose pictures came up there. And it brought, chiefs don't cry. My eyes were a little bit wet because I know most of them, interacted with quite a number of them. And I was quite happy that they are now being proudly elevated to a legendary status for their fearlessness and principles, as Afel Moni was telling us. It's a rare celebration that we are going to have. The theme, however, our fourth estate. And I heard the chairman also say the fourth estate, past and present, the pillars to remember. See, whenever I hear words like the estate labeling, it catches my attention because it tells you how much we have internalized and discussed governance in forms of estates. And thereby, we water and validate the seeds of the French cultural and social heritage, which have never been mine. Where are the estates in Ghana? Who created them? But you see, we use these things without thinking. And we are caught up in the French Revolution, which you learned in Form 5. We still don't have Form 5. Now we have JS, SS something. You're caught up with those things. And you don't know how much they impact on your mind. So these things sort of worry me. Thus, I'm happy, that the fourth estate, in quotes, label highlights and reinforces the strain of what some of us refer to as our conceptual incarceration. Freeing Africa from Eurocentric intellectual imprisonment is very difficult, but it's a challenge African journalists, especially by the nature of their profession, must certainly take up. Ngugi wa Thiong'o, I'm sure all of you have read Weep No Child and so on and so forth. Caution, he said, Eurocentrism is the most dangerous to the self-confidence of the third world peoples when it becomes internalized in the intellectual conception of the universe. A lot of times when I hear people talk, even on BBC, what is BBC? Oh, I heard, where's the mind? So these are the challenges, and you are the ones, as Ampabin was talking about the NLC thing, you are the ones to educate us out of this. We need to get out of this. We can't afford to be sitting in that intellectual prison. And that's why we are here today. In fact, a friend of mine, Anna Kwekubeko, said that if we do not exist and function personally and collectively according to our African essence, then everything we do or provide, teaching, service, treatment, theorizing, we only deserve and dehumanize ourselves and our people. This is what makes the journalists identified to be celebrated today even more fascinating. Ladies and gentlemen, undoubtedly, if you think carefully, you'll see that this imprisonment of the intellect, makes a huge contribution to what I refer to as our miseducated neurosis, which at times make an African country resemble an unprincipled madhouse. This is writ large across the continent. Officials in various institutions of governance defy almost all ideas of what seems to be plain common sense and human intelligence. I said, what are they doing? But these are the things that contribute to it and we don't seem to understand. And then we sink into juvenile forms of behavior and exhibit the human capacity for selfishness, narcissism, tyranny, and evil across the continent. But it's because our minds have been locked up somewhere. We have to find the key and put it back. And the 13 gentlemen that we are celebrating, I'm just praying that if you study each and every one of them, that has been the objective. We could rationalize the fact that there is an absence of a collective cultural mission and self-understanding. Another chief, Nana Bafua Mankwetia, has a convincing view that we do not know who we are, cannot explain how we got here, and have no sense of our destiny beyond mere survival. Most of us hope to hitch a ride on someone else's wagon, with no thought whatsoever as to where that wagon may be going. We have no destination of our own. Then he goes in and says, I didn't say so, I'm only quoting a chief. Ask our leadership, ask our women, men and children on the street what our agenda is. We are so used to having others make long-term plans for us. But there is hope for positive change. The individuals we celebrated, being celebrated by the Center of Communication and Culture, together with the partner institutions, provide this hope. You could hear Money when he was talking passionately about fearlessness and so on. Those being celebrated are being celebrated for rare human values and cultural essence which are fast vanishing out of this continent. In fact, when Money was talking, it reminded me about, I like Frantz Fanon very much, a quote I put down from Frantz Fanon. We are nothing on earth if we are not in the first place the slaves of a cause. The cause of the people, the cause of justice, and the cause of liberty. This was a letter that Fanon wrote. The motto of Ghana in particular is simple: freedom and justice. The fearlessness that we've talked about is about freedom and justice. Is the current Ghanaian media enslaved to the cause of freedom? Print Park online. But when he said the Kentema was in there, I thought he was going to say he was online. And so freedom, ladies and gentlemen, is a psychological phenomenon. To understand and know freedom, one must first understand enslavement. You don't need to go far. Quite recently on social media, you've seen, sometimes you see an African being in a net, he's being caught in a net. Anytime I look at it, I tell myself that almost every African intellectual needs to put that picture, especially the leadership. They need to put that picture there to understand the net that we must break. But that's a physical net. Freedom is a manifestation of truth. Gladly, we have Sophie here. And he knows that a great teacher says, say the truth, and the truth shall make you what? Free. I'm quoting, not me. But truth involves integrity. It involves honesty. It involves candor. It involves uprightness. It involves honor and reliability, among other things. Are these words the hallmark of Ghanaian journalism today? You are the journalist. Me, I'm just a humble chief from many rivers away. So think about it. Obviously, ladies and gentlemen, our current mediascape generates worry with this penchant for character assassination, hyper-partisanship, fabricated stories, etc. Quite recently, you remember that somewhere a journalist openly confessed about in fabricating and marketing stories to impugn the integrity of a political personality, a personality in politics. This confession has stayed in the silence. Of course, God resides in silence. I hope this confession, if it is true, will be pardoned by the God of our collective ancestors, in whom truth resides. To say an untruth is to wage violence on the mind of the listener. To lie is to violate the mind of the listener. For when you lie, you are a rapist. You are raping somebody's mind through lies. More often than not, lies serve as calculated concealment of the actual objectives in order to mobilize the masses towards a psychopathic agenda. It is entirely up to you. Where do you stand? With lies or with truth, and therefore with freedom? Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, are the current crop of African journalists enslaved to justice? Now, we like saying justice. Justice is not in the law court, so. The law court is only the outgrowth of justice in the society. Do you feel that there is fairness in the society? Do you feel that there is impartiality in the society? Do you feel equality? Whenever I go on the road in front of a particular road, I forgot, the N1 something, and I see the young girls carrying this, I just say that carrying their things. I said, that's our space minds, the minds that should take us to. Why are they in that condition? What has pushed them to that and I start worrying about myself and the future. It's not because I eat. When I see the car here, I'm with them. How does a journalist feel when you see this kind of living? And if I go to the court with a Kaye cannot afford what? A lawyer. But I will probably afford a lawyer. And the law, maybe 2 or 3, because I have some who will come and do it for me for free, and so on and so forth. So, does a spirit of justice pervade our African society? A partner institution to this celebration could not even have its elections for quite a long time. I feel if I'm wrong, you tell me. When the elections were finally held, its integrity became entangled in rumors of bribery and corruption. I pray it is not true. If the rumors are true, then heaven help us all. We all need supplication, but journalists, just as chiefs, need special supplication. Ladies and gentlemen, participatory governance translates into well-informed citizenry. In this Fourth Republic, Ghanaian political discourse, and it's been brought, I think it was Ebenezer who brought it out, has become one of unbridled personal attacks, vilification, and insults. Some people said, you remember that in 2012, the head of the Department in Linguistics, for example, started something called Kasapa and Kasawam, to try to sanitize. In fact, the former president of Ghana, John Mahama, also said in the Eastern region, House of Chiefs, worried about all these insults that are emanating within our culture. And then the Media Foundation for West Africa started releasing weekly reports to the general public on shaming politicians who are involved in the politics of insults. The main aim of MFWA was to promote issue-based and decent language, campaigning for a peaceful, free and fair election. That was in 2012. Now, interestingly, and I'm glad that Printpark is part of this, and now they even have the online thing. Most of the insults emanate from politicians through their media outlets. These outlets have their own interest in promoting certain ideologies and political positions. Them versus us. Anytime I hear Yonkayahu, I say, who is against Ghana? Who is for Ghana? But we've got, this particular mentality. We need to get rid of it, and the media has, the work you guys have to do, and girls have to do, it's not easy. There's a displacement of basic facts, the dumbing down of the masses, and the manufacturing of ignorance, and the raising high the fearful flag of destructive tribalism as part of the science of politics. Anytime tribalism emerges, I get frightened. If you remember Nkrumah's speech, 1957, 5th of March, in that short address, one of the things he warned us about was tribalism. It is your role to make sure that this particular destructive thing doesn't arise. I get worried all the time. Sometimes you go to a place you can't talk. And yet that is what a lot of those who claim that they are politicians thrive on. Look at Ethiopia, what is happening today between the Amharas and the Oromos. Look at South Africa. Look at Angola. Look at DRC. I could go on. Look at Nigeria. I could go on and on and on. And we should learn that this particular animal should be caged and locked. And the only people who can do this are those who educate the masses. Thank you for the clap. I deserved it. Ladies and gentlemen, in this era of social media, with deep fakes and Photoshop technology, black operations are going to be even more devastating, with an increase in the illusory truth effect, which will affect what we describe as our cognitive psychology. And that is why this event and what the Center for Communications and Culture seeks to do is important. We need these legendary qualities even more than ever today. For the sake of freedom and justice, it's my prayer that those being elevated into the legendary status will have their works and lives studied and scrutinized to serve as examples to follow. If you take African governments, and they'll be talking about fearlessness. What is the fearlessness about? African governments tend to be very totalitarian. Simple. And it becomes gross, even under military regimes. I hope we never slip back into a military regime. In Ghana, we all know that this led us to the culture of silence during the PNDC era. And why? Fear. It's true. Fear makes you do And your job, you can't do it with their fear because you must definitely become How can journalists go around As the French would say, never possible. So, when an armed robber enters your house and points a loaded gun at your head, you do not talk about freedom and rights. And that is what military regimes are about. They come to liberate you, to redeem you, to do this. But the gun is pointed at the citizenry. How dare you talk about freedom and rights? So those who stood up in this period and spoke their minds, wrote independently, and so on, they become beacons of light, not just for today, but for tomorrow. To point a gun to the head of an unarmed person and exact compliance is the power of the armed robber. Information, ladies and gentlemen, is the key ingredient to African liberation, vision, and development. You are the ones who have the information. There can be no gain without pain. And their form of struggle, which was within the framework of human rights or free speech, may also be seen as part of the responsibility of the term today, but I still use, of the African personality in rejecting oppression. It was in the keeping with the African-centered spirit of liberation. Fear, intimidation, arrest, torture, and death have been the tools of totalitarian governments. This brings great clarity to the need to celebrate the courage and commitment and principles of the celebrants in whose name we've gathered here today. Interestingly, and this is for me in particular, this world would always be a mystery. Just when I was putting my thoughts together this morning, when I arrived from Sekondi, I received 2 quotes, just out of the blue, in the form of greetings. You know, that's what we do. We get a nice quote and put good morning and so on it, not the ones that you usually find. One highlighted something. He says, and talked about our attachment to comforting lies. I.e., most people don't really want the truth. They just want constant reassurance that what they believe is the truth. I leave that to your meditations. But the second quote that came was from about my special hero, Malcolm X, about the media. If some of you know me, and Mr. Elimina sure knows me quite well, that I'm probably the only chief in Ghana who wears Malcolm X t-shirts around, you know, most of the time. Malcolm just says simply, the media is the most powerful entity on earth. Of course, if you think about it carefully, if the media is the most powerful entity on earth, then how can you be speaking truth to power? Think about it very carefully. Then he goes on to say they have the power to make the innocent guilty and make the guilty innocent. And that is power. Then he adds, because they control the minds of the masses. Malcolm was simply acknowledging the power of the mass consciousness industry, and which has brought us here today. Africa's freedom and future development is placed squarely on the shoulders of the media. In fact, anytime I hear people say, oh, speak truth to power, say truth is power. So you don't speak truth to power. You may speak truth to people in certain authority. But you have any person who speaks the truth. Truth is God. God is power. So therefore, you don't speak truth to power. You show the God nature of who you are. Speak the truth. Say the truth at all times without fear. Simple. Don't speak truth to power. Why? That means that you are not sure of what you are saying. If you are confident that you are saying the truth, kanau. But let me ask, humbly, look at me as a village chief. What does the media stand for today? What values and principles are enshrined in our mass consciousness industry? When I was leaving GBC, the union brought me a gift. I've never forgotten it. You know, it sits somewhere and before sir. He brought me a carving of somebody beating the gong gong. So who pays for the gong gong? The media uses. Journalism in this African space was ingrained in nationalism. Prof, our early nationalists like John Mains Saba Hattenbrew, J. Kisley Hayford, Kobna Sechi, whom I love, and Atahuma, in spite of their semi-privileged positions and background within the confines of colonialism, display the necessity of the usage of the media as a tool which should be controlled by a certain consciousness. To some extent, they used it to protect the dignity and value system of the African. Their personality and vision could be discerned through the articles. We recollect that Atahuma was even sacked from his job because he would not compromise on his values. So this doesn't start yesterday. And I think that Bannerman was also sacked or put in prison because of things he wrote in the 1850s. But you know this better than I do. Whereas in the pre-independence period, journalists has written for Africa and Africans. The mindset that the African media underwent a metamorphosis after independence. Something went wrong. The spirit of truth, public welfare, fairness, freedom, and a just society came to be replaced by the phenomenon of personal security by any means necessary. It became the miserable, depressing, and distressing period in the history of journalism in Ghana. Writing or publishing has gradually become controlled for the sake of daily bread, which was the term used during Kofi Bedu's time, or what we use today, Prof. Soli. K.B. Kwanson, for example, reflected sensitively. The phrase daily bread illustrated an aspect of the censorship that pressmen in government-owned media have imposed on themselves. The issue was not one of economic survival. The issue was one of economic survival, pure and simple. Not much of principles and ethics are evolved. You know, but really, the Soli and the daily bread matter. I really don't blame the media. It makes this celebration of these people quite worthwhile. Something has gone wrong, and our institutions and our society are all a reflection of the ethos of the time we live in. Something must give, something must change. Let us look at these people. Oppressors consistently do their utmost to defend their interests, which is to maintain their oppression, so long as it upholds their privileges and benefits. An oppressor will use everything, religion, education, science, philosophy, whatever, to rationalize his or her interest. The media was either a tool for liberation or oppression, depending on the mind that uses it. For the media to be effective for the African, then, the mindset of the journalist is vital. Thus, in training journalists, it becomes important to examine the mindsets of these legendary people we have. Fortunately, we have GIJ just about there. And I remember that my friend and son, Cabral Blair Meher, when he was, I think at a point he headed GIJ, yes. And he introduced various books. You know, you saw that the books you read affect you. So he made it compulsory reading Marcus Garvey. I sometimes ask myself, why aren't we studying Marcus Garvey? a book that was banned by our enemies. And they didn't want, whenever you want to get rid of your enemy, you do what he doesn't want you to do. So Cabral made sure that Marcus Garvey's opinions were being read and studied. You know, Sheikh Anta Diop, Fanon has now gone into what? Oblivion. You know, Senghor and Diop and so on and so forth. He made them mandatory. Those of you who were there during Cabral's time would remember. And then he made sure people would read African political thought. Please, I've taught political thought before. Most of the time when we walk into class, we teach Western political thought. So we start from Plato and go on. That is not politics, that is our brofuna. So he made sure people read African political thought, political economy, contemporary politics, among other things. So he made people, the journalists have this kind of foundation, you know, mandatory reading. I hope that this has gone on because you need to understand colonialism. It's not gone. You need to understand neo-colonialism. It is not gone, it is here. But most of all, and worse still, you need to understand what is meant by coloniality, which is something Ghana in particular has not yet started touching. Latin America to South America, they are into it. South Africa is treating it big. Nigeria, like this, but Ghana, not yet. But you need to understand it in order to know the mindset, the right mindset that you're using. Because these are all arsenals of mind control. These are the arsenals of mental warfare. It is a cultural war that you are engaged in. Of course, looking at the people too, as I saw my friends being shown there, my mind went to people like Archbishop Palmer Buckle, you know, P.A.V. Ansa, Kwesi Yanka, Albert Edubuahen, Tommy Thompson, and as well as the papers, the Catholic Standard, Free Press, and the Legon Observer, who championed the struggle against totalitarianism. Men such as Tommy Thompson, you all know, and Kublai, who paid the highest price against this. The demise of these men thus endorsed the idea that the cost of freedom is painfully high when one deals with leaders steeped in the culture of impunity. Hence, this celebration makes it very, very, very important. I'm about to end. Ladies and gentlemen, no war is as important and as devastating as the war on the mind. No war. No culturally conscious people allow such a powerful tool to be controlled by a system that is not their own. However, we've been softened by miseducation. Suffer, forgive me. Religious imperialism and colonialism. So therefore, the media has generally been a tool working to demolish Africa's heritage and value system. And that's why I was happy to see the very beautiful lady. I have a picture with the Adwa Oh, I said, sister, let's have a picture with her. If I could have declared something else, I could have, but she's happily married, so. But we need to remember the African consciousness. We need to remember the ideal of freedom. We need to remember the ideal of justice. And that is why this celebration is important. And that's the main reason why I crossed many rivers today. Today is the day that my friend, a special friend of mine, passed on, the former Vice President, Pakwesi Emisata. 4 years, I think, exactly. And then the House of Chiefs is also having a meeting in Sekondi that they won't forgive me for missing. And I think that in Cape Coast too, I was supposed to have attended Atta Mills's lecture. It's ongoing by a friend of mine, Professor Enin. But this one, please hold on to it, dear. And based on that, I now have the pride, Rafia, and pleasure to declare media in Ghana, the bold, the beautiful, the ugly, and the maverick, officially launched. Thank you.
And if I'm permitted, I mean, Ghana is a very interesting country. We want the best, but unfortunately, we're not prepared to invest in the best. Usually when it comes to public media in Ghana, they talk about GBC and what we are not doing and all that, and compare us to others. Unfortunately, what most people do not do is that those people that we compare us to are well-resourced and funded. Very, 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 very funded. Unfortunately, when it comes to Ghana, our story is different. And yet, they want us to run like the lions and tigers. So, to be fair, let's start thinking about funding the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. Let's start thinking about that. If it's the TV license, we have to bring it. We have to bring it. It's important. Nana, thank you very much once again. Let's put our hands together for Nana. We'll go for the closing remarks. So we'll call on our chairman to give us the closing remarks. And after that, Rebecca Ekpe will give us the vote of thanks. And then, okay, all right. Okay.
I think so. We've had a very... I've been given an order. I've been given an order by the director. So, thank you very much. And Nana, you've given us a lot to feed on. A good lecture on what is expected of the media today to produce the next generation of legends in future. We are feeding on the stories of the past legends. We are celebrating them today, but we should prepare so that some years to come, another generation will celebrate us. What we will do to get celebrated is what Nana spelled out today for us. And I think that there's a lot to feed on the lecture. I didn't call it a speech. It was a lecture. Now, I think it's a very short ceremony. The important thing is that please make time to watch the series on television on Sundays. The promos will be rolling out very soon, and you should be able to make time to follow the stories of these legends. I want to just simply say I wouldn't be going through what Nana said. There's so much to feed on. We listened to the history behind the series, the originator of the concept. Emil Eshon took us through how the center operates and the structure of the center. We pray that the center will continue to produce wonderful concepts like the one we are working on today. And for us at the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation, we are just doing what we are expected to do. Well, the chairman's closing remarks, one of the most beautiful statements that has been made today happens to have been made by the MC. He says we should fund GBC. And I think, as chairman, I want to emphasize the significance, the importance of it. Because the BBC that we take as the standard, actually I'm carrying a diary of BBC, and I look and say, why am I not carrying a diary of GBC? But the BBC that we celebrate, 80% of their funding is coming from TV licenses, paid by all residents within the British jurisdiction. You must pay. And we have Ghanaians living in UK, they will pay their TV license in UK. They will come to Ghana and they won't pay their TV license. They expect us to act like BBC. That is the problem. So I've taken that liberty to speak more excess on that. But I'll come back to what I'm supposed to do. So on that note, we, from our side, we are delighted to be associated. We listen to the various statements from people who are affiliated to it. And here again, I'm biased. The comments from Mr. Zampabeng was clearly very important for us to reflect on. The mandate of GBC even as it was crafted by a military regime, expects us to be impartial, and we have been and will continue to be. Let us throw away the past of the image of GBC and look at what GBC does today. We do not take instructions from any political or shadow images. They don't actually call us. Whatever we do, we are doing it because we are GBC. I can assure you here, frankly, no, I don't get any phone calls from any politician giving me dictations on what to do. No, they don't do that. And I appreciate that. Ours is to be professional, ethical, and law-abiding. And that is what we want to do. GBC's services are impartial, and we do it. And the concept of being the bold, the beautiful, not the ugly, but the maverick. Thank you.
Rebecca, the public affairs officer-elect will give us for the GJ.
Incoming. Yes. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We're still celebrating. We haven't finished. It was number 1 on the ballot. And for those who are here who voted for me, thank you very much. I certainly appreciate that, because I happen to be the one who collected the most votes for the Ghana Journalists Association this time around. Thank you all very much. And thank you for that. And it's for GBC. So for GBC, by all means, yeah. Thank you. Thank you very much. Still in the campaign mood. I apologize. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Okay. Good afternoon. Okay, so real quick, is something short, is to say thank you to everyone here. 2 things for me come to mind. One is something sort of like a cliche, and it's from a black think tank in the United States. It says, the mind is a terrible thing to waste. The mind is a terrible thing to waste. It's a big reflection, and I think that comes to mind here. We thank you so very much, Mr. Emil Ashon, for sharing your mind with us, and for also going in further to bring this rich history to us in terms of sharing the minds of the 13 people that will be sharing their minds with us. And I know it's not for today, but it's for years and years to come. When I went to study in the United States, one of the first questions I had as I entered was, where are you from? And this is how they say, where are you from? Because they realize that you have an accent, so where are you from? Your identity, who you are, is very critical and very important. So we thank you so very much. And I think that Nana Kwabena Nketia V also drew attention to that. It's very important to know who we are and remember who we are. Anywhere we go on this globe, we are nobody, we are Ghanaians, and we have to remember that. You can speak like American, you're still a Ghanaian. So let's remember that and carry that on. So Nana, we thank you so very much for that, and that big reminder for some of us. Thank you so very much. Professor Amin Hassan, Director General of GBC, for your dream, your enthusiasm, and your push to see broadcasting to be what it needs to be, professionalism, and everything that it takes. Thank you so much for supporting that dream. We hope to carry that on anywhere, anytime, any place. After money, he's not here, outgoing GJA president. Some of us happen to be under his tutorials, and because of him, some of us are today members, not only members, but spearheading professionalism in journalism in Ghana. Thank you very much. You're not here, but I hope and I know that you hear this. And last but not the least, Reverend Tete, thank you so much for always being there to help us spiritually. We know that we are better and will be better as the days come to pass. Thank you for that inspiration, and thank you always. And the very last thing also is that, which I said 2 things that come to mind. The first one what I said was the fact that money is a terrible thing to waste. The very last thing is that if you do not tell your story, someone else will. And that story will be told in a way that you may never like. So today, for those who haven't told their stories, please make it a point to tell your story before that day when your mouth will close, that you may not ever be able to tell your story. So this is an opportunity and reminder for all of us that we need to tell our stories. Thank you very much. Good afternoon, and have a great day. Thank you.
And then we'll go for the closing prayer.
Mr. Chairman, I think I agree with Nana, but I want to suggest to our brother Animal that the clergy need to tell their story too. And in saying that, I put this piece together to read you. It might be news to some of you that the term fourth estate has been around for centuries. In Europe, where I studied, I was privileged to study. Going back the medieval times, the people who participated in the political life of a country were generally divided into three classes or estates. In England, there were the three groups which representation in Parliament, namely the nobility, the clergy, and the common people. Some other groups, like the mob or the public press, that had an unofficial but often great influence on public affairs, was called the Fourth Estate. In the 19th century, Fourth Estate came to refer exclusively to the press, and now it's applied to all branches of the news media. So please don't forget the clergy. And I believe a lot of us are playing a lot of role to get this information out there. And so please, and I shall not for you, you are my big brother, so don't leave us out at all. There are a lot of Christian clergy and Muslim clerics that are doing great jobs, and let's include them so that we can even get the message across better, because I think there's a lot of faith in us, much more than a lot of politicians and pressmen. Shall we pray? We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. I don't know about you, but for me, deep in my heart, I do believe. I do believe that Ghana we shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. I don't know how sensitive this will be, but if we can lift up our two hands and thank God for Ghana, that we shall overcome. Nana, we shall overcome. Professor, we shall overcome. Brother Enemy, we shall overcome. We shall overcome. The people of Ghana shall overcome. Regardless of what NDC does wrong, regardless of what MPP does wrong, regardless of what CPP has done wrong, regardless of what all of us have done wrong, regardless of what the media has done wrong, regardless of what the clergy and the clerics have done wrong, Ghana will overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome. We shall overcome someday. Oh, deep in my heart, oh, I do believe that we shall overcome someday. Father, add my voice to Nana's voice. Add my voice to Professor's voice. Add my voice to Enemil's voice. Add my voice to Afremoni's voice. And we say whatever we have said here today will be to your glory. Let this noble idea and gesture be established, and let men and women be celebrated. Let unsung heroes be sung out, and let people who have been left neglected feel back again that they were loved and that their work was not done in vain. I thank God in the name of the Father, in the name of the Son, in the name of the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen. Thank you very much, and watch out on GTV for this new program. My name is George Sapo, and I work with the Ghana Broadcasting Corporation. I'll see you when I see you. Bye-bye.